Space was silent. A signal from an uncharted region echoed after more than 500 years. The wanderer did not ignore the call for help even if it might have been a trap set by time itself. We found them, the ones thought lost to history. They did not beg to be saved. They were the ones who carried a dream Earth never dared to ask. But that dream came at a price. The sacrifice of the last ship just to awaken the heart of a dying planet. Blood spilled. The Earth screamed. Children were swallowed by the cracks. And in the depths of devastation, a voice rose. I am alive, but I am in pain. This was not a war between good and evil. It was a moment when humanity chose love over fear. We were not heroes. We were simply the last ones who didn't turn away. The signal from the dark. Space is a place of terrifying silence. At the farthest edge of the galaxy where even the Galactic Union's maps still show blank spaces, the patrol ship, Wanderer, drifted quietly past unnamed stars. Its kilometer-long hull, plated in dull blue-gray armor, moved like a shark through a black ocean. No one knew what it was, hunting, perhaps not even itself. Commander Tahoe, a seasoned warrior of the Union, stood before the observation deck's towering window. His face was chiseled like it had been carved from alloy-high cheekbones, eyes the color of cold steel, and a scar running from temple to jaw like a silent warning to anyone thinking of disobedience. On the central screen, a faint red blip blinked. Officer Dean, the three-eyed technician, leaned over his console, fingers flying like lightning across the controls. Unusual energy signal, sir. The frequency doesn't match any known planetary records. Any sign of life? Unclear. The energy fluctuations resemble a distress beacon, but it's not standard. Tahoe stepped forward, the green-blue glow from the monitor, casting harsh shadows across his unflinching face. He stared at the flickering signal. No one sends a distress call from a place that doesn't exist on any map, unless they don't want to be found. Dean swallowed. Your orders, Commander? We never ignore a rescue signal, even if it's over 500 years late. The Wanderer changed course, plunging into uncharted space. On the main viewer, a breathtaking blue planet emerged, resembling Earth, but colder, lonelier. Stable orbit established. Altitude, 800 kilometers. Initiating full surface scan. Science Officer Mia, slender, smooth-skinned alien with long, four-fingered hands, known for her species' intelligence, frowned at the incoming data. There's architecture, housing structures, and a source of artificial energy, she whispered. This isn't a dead world. Someone lives down there. Who? Tahoe clenched a fist. This sector's never had any signs of exploration. How could a civilization be thriving here without anyone knowing? Me projected the visuals onto the main screen. Settlements stretched across a highland plateausum, built from rough stone and timber, others glowing with light of unknown origin. Water channels flowed through the villages. No pumps, no power lines. I'm not certain, Me said slowly, but they look human. What? Dean's three eyes widened. Me nodded. They are human. The drop pod rumbled softly as it detached from the Wanderer. Tahoe sat across from the other three team members, me, Dean, and Juno the pilot, whose silver hair and golden cat-like eyes had seen more war zones than maps could mark. Each of them carried plasma rifles, translation gear, and one silent, shared question. How could humans exist on a planet that had never been discovered? They landed in a forest where the leaves glowed faint purple. From the tree line, 12 figures emerged. They wore hand-woven garments, their skin darkened by sun, but their eyes mirrored those of anyone born on Earth. An older man with thick gray hair, a long beard, and a deep voice spoke in perfect standard dialect. Welcome, travelers from the stars. We've been waiting for generations. Tahoe removed his helmet. The wind carried the scent of fresh grass and smoldering wood. I am Commander Tahoe of the Galactic Union. This cannot be real. Humans? This far out? The nearest colony is over 300 light-years away. The man smiled a knowing, quiet smile, like someone reopening a book long hidden on a shelf. We are the answer to questions Earth never dared to ask. Come, this story cannot be told in a few words. Inside the village, the impossible began to show itself. A young woman named Nari lifted the trunk of a massive fallen tree with her bare hands effortlessly. A child looked at me and whispered, "You're scared," even though me hadn't spoken a word. Tahoe said nothing, but his eyes never left the sky. There was something on this planet, something older than the stars, and they had just opened the first door. A pale violet sunlight stretched across the wooden rooftops of the secluded village, nestled deep in the forest. They called this place Verland, ancient word meaning the hiding place of faith. Beneath that strange twilight, Tahoe's team followed the silver-bearded man named Chianthi, unofficial leader of this secretive community. There were no guards, no weapons, and yet no one moved carelessly. Every gesture was precise, almost unnervingly so, like each step had been rehearsed by something beyond instinct. "We have much to tell you," Keen said as he led them into a structure built from black stone and deep red wood. There was no electricity, and yet the room glowed softly, lit by shimmering crystals embedded in the ceiling, like frozen drops of liquid moonlight. Mi raised her scanner to one of the crystals. No power source, no plasma, no chemical reaction. It's biological interaction? Keen nodded. We no longer separate technology from biology. We live within a cycle where mind and nature are no longer divided. Tahoe sat in a spiral-shaped chair, its form hardened from living roots. His voice came low and sharp. "You said your people came from Earth. That's impossible. No mission left our solar system before the 27th century. Kian met Tahoe's gaze without flinching. We weren't part of any sanctioned mission. Silence fell over the room. We were fugitives. Mi stiffened. Fugitives from what? From humanity itself, Kian answered, his voice deep, as if it rose from the core of the planet. From those who imprisoned the dream of evolution, from the bans on genetic research, neural fusion, and what your kind labeled moral violations. Tahoe gripped the armrest tightly. You're talking about the neural enhancement programs? Keen nodded. And more. We were the result of an initiative that history was never allowed to remember. When those in power on Earth found out, they threatened to wipe us out. We had only one choice: escape. A small group, 230 people, broke away from their assigned orbit and vanished into the dark. Mi whispered, "That was 512 years ago." Exactly, Keen confirmed. Since then, we've survived, adapted, and changed. Juno, who had remained silent until now, tilted her head. And the strength we witnessed? That woman Narishe lifted a tree trunk weighing several tons. Kian gave a wistful smile. We call it potential. All humans possess it. But the old world smothered it beneath laws, fear, and control. Here, no one is rejected for being different. Tahoe didn't speak, but his eyes drifted to the back wall where a mural was carved from tree bark and living resin. It showed an old, battered spacecraft, its hull engulfed in flame, plummeting into an atmosphere. That's Pathfinder 1, Keen said quietly. Our ship. The planet's gravity nearly tore apart the guidance systems when we arrived. Over 70 died on the first night. Silence spread like mist. A moment of reverence passed, heavy and unspoken. We buried them beneath the roots of the wind-caller tree. Since then, none of us has left this world. Not because we can't, but because our blood is bound to this place. Tahoe slowly nodded. You survived. But why stay hidden? Why not send a distress call? Seek reintegration? Keen looked at him, and for the first time, pain flickered in his eyes. Because we don't believe you'd let us live. Nightfall came swiftly on this planet, the sun sinking as if dragged down by an invisible hand. The wind howled through the glowing purple canopy, and the twin moons bathed the guest house in soft, shifting light. Mi stepped outside, seeking air. She wasn't used to being read. The children in the village stared at her like they knew everything, things she'd never told anyone. One little girl had whispered the name of Mi's father, who had died over 40 years ago. She wandered to the forest's edge, where moonlight dappled the grass like spilled mercury. That's when she saw a Narithe woman who'd lifted the tree sitting beside a stone, one hand pressed to the ground. "What are you doing?" Mi asked, part fear, part awe. "Listening?" Nari replied, eyes still closed. "Listening to what?" "The planet's core. It's in pain." Mi clutched her uniform tighter. At that moment, a faint cracking sound rose from beneath her feet. The ground seemed to breathe. At the same time, aboard the Wanderer, Map Officer Sunu jolted upright from his geological station. "No, that can't be," he muttered, brown eyes wide. On his screen, a 3D map of the planet's core pulsed in red. Directly beneath Verland, a seismic hotspot glowed, marked by heat, pressure, and fractured tectonic layers. Sunu slammed the emergency alert. "Commander, you need to see this. Immediately. We're sitting on a ticking time bomb." The next morning, as lavender mist still clung to the stone rooftops, Commander Tahoe and the Union team were invited to the heart of Verland's circular chamber, grown from living wood, its walls curving like muscles under tension. Not a single nail, not a scrap of metal, and yet it felt more solid than the steel bulkheads of the Wanderer. "A living structure," Mi whispered, running her hand along the wall. "Wood fused with mineral cells. It's like the room is still breathing." From beneath a massive root arch stepped Unathe, silver-haired woman with ageless eyes. She was the keeper of knowledge for the colony. In her hands, she held a transparent orb, like a droplet of water frozen mid-fall through time. "This contains all the memories of our ancestors," she said. "The forbidden experiments, the deaths erased from records, and the journey of those the world abandoned." Her voice was soft, even, but it carried a gravity that filled the room. From the orb, projections shimmered into the air. Audio logs, secret documents, classified footage, most from old Earth governments, military contractors, and condemned human enhancement programs. The images were disturbing microchips embedded in newborns, spinal cords replaced with neural conduits, a man weeping as his eyes began to see through solid matter. "We were victims and perpetrators," Una admitted. "Our forebears sought to break the limits of flesh. They wanted the mind to merge with cosmic intelligence, but no one stopped to ask, what would we lose to achieve that?" Then came the final recording, Pathfinder 1, engulfed in flames, plummeting through the planet's atmosphere. Screams, children pounding on bulkhead doors, a mother cradling her child crushed as a support beam fell during the crash. Tahoe's jaw tightened, neck muscles bulging. Dean cursed under his breath in his native Garelian tongue. "We lost over a third of our people within the first 12 hours, Una said. "The rest survived and changed." That afternoon, the Union crew was led to a biological research station, though it looked nothing like one. No sterile equipment, no cold metal surfaces. Instead, gardens, living ponds, and altered wildlife. "This is our lab," Keon said, gesturing to a creature with 4 legs, 2 eyes, and silver-tinted skin swimming in an emerald liquid. "That's a fish?" Mi asked. "A food source," Keon replied. "It has no consciousness, but it can regenerate human liver tissue in just 8 hours. It lives for a week, then dissolves into fertile soil." Juno stood still. "This isn't adaptation. This is a new direction for evolution." "Exactly," Keon nodded. "Technology and biology are no longer separate paths. We didn't build machines to replace life. We taught life how to become the machine." Mi was invited to a secluded chamber room only accessible to those with high sensitivity. Inside, she found a circle of children meditating in complete silence. One little girl, perhaps 6 years old, opened her eyes and looked at her. "You have a fracture in your heart," the child said. "What?" "You lost your mother very young, and you've never cried enough." Mi stepped back, hand trembling slightly. "We call this resonant empathy," Una explained. "Not mind reading like in the old sci-fi stories. It's Emotional transmission through shared biological fields. We don't read thoughts. We feel wounds. All of them, even unspoken. Mi began to cry. From a distance, Tahoe watched Anne for the first time in decades. Something unfamiliar stirred in him. Envy. These people didn't just survive. They understood each other. No one here was left alone. But darkness wasn't far behind. That very night, ash-laced rain began to fall. Crimson lightning tore across the sky like veins of fire, and inside the Wanderer's seismic station, alarms began to blare. Sunu burst through the corridor and into the command deck, face pale as snow. "Commander, we have a serious problem." He projected the geological map. Below the surface, a spiderweb of fractures was spreading outward, with its epicenter directly beneath Virella. Core temperatures are spiking. Mid-mantle pressure is 3 times above the safety threshold. Indicators suggest an impending ultramantle eruption. Dean swore loudly. "In Union Standard, please." Sunu swallowed hard. "It means this planet is about to self-destruct. And we're standing at ground zero." Tahoe fell silent. He looked up, where red lightning flashed over the village rooftops. "This colony has months, maybe less. We need to evacuate," Dean snapped. "No," Tahoe said firmly. "They won't leave. They've buried their dead here. This is home." "So what then?" Dean shouted. "We just let them die? Turn our backs because they refuse to run?" Tahoe's eyes turned toward the village where children still held hands and laughed in the ashfall, unaware that the very earth beneath them was cracking more with every hour. "We don't run. We find a way to save them, even if there's only a 1% chance." And deep beneath the surface, in the oldest veins of the planet, something was awakening. Catastrophe from the planet's core. The sky split open like torn flesh under the blood-red slashes of lightning. Below, the earth groaned, trembling in waves like a dying creature gasping for breath. Inside the colony's council hall, the light flickered not from electricity, but because the living crystals embedded in the ceiling could feel the fear in the room. Commander Tahoe stood over the glowing geological map. Sunu pointed to the spreading fault lines, all radiating outward from one epicenter directly beneath the village of Virella. "Based on the latest readings, we have approximately 64 days, Sunu said. Then the subterranean magma chamber will erupt. A layered cascade eruption not just destroying this region, but possibly tearing the planet apart." No one spoke. A child began to cry. Even the walls grown from living wood seemed to crack slightly, as if the structure itself was afraid. Juno whispered, "It's like the planet is trying to end itself." "We know," Una said calmly at last, without panic, without trembling. Tahoe spun around. "You knew?" Keen nodded. "The tremors began over a year ago. We've been tracking them. We tried, but our strength has limits." Una raised her hand. A wooden control panel bloomed open like a flower, revealing a rudimentary but precise seismic monitoring array. "We anticipated this, and we built a solution." A stone door groaned open behind them, revealing a tunnel descending into the earth. Tahoe eyed Keen, suspicion burning in his gaze. "You dug a tunnel?" "No," Keen replied. "We built a heart." The tunnel stretched nearly 2 kilometers down into the bedrock. The air grew thick and metallic. At its end lay a massive, circular chamber, deep and cavernous. And in the center, something alive. It wasn't a machine, not entirely. A spherical construct the size of a transport tank. Part metal, part living tissue, bioluminescent roots wrapped around its surface, pulsing gently. It connected directly into the stone matrix and crystal lattice of the planet itself. It breathed like lungs. Tubes filled with glowing green-blue fluid coursed through it, bubbling like blood in a living body. "This is the core stabilizer," Keen explained. "A geotectonic reformation device. It doesn't just stabilize the crust, it heals the imbalance within the core." Tahoe stepped forward. "Is it operational?" Keen shook his head. "We don't have enough energy." Mi raised her voice. Then why not use solar fusion reactors? From the shadows stepped Dawantha colony's lead engineer, covered in grease and stone dust. Not enough. Not consistent. Every time we initiate, the system shuts down. What we need is planet-scale plasma, current continuous, regulated. Tahoe clenched his jaw. Wanderer. Dean snapped his head up. You can't be serious. The main reactor could power an entire planetary base, Mi confirmed, her voice suddenly cold. But if we divert the full current, the ship will shut down. Shields, comms, everything. We'll be stranded, Dean growled. No, Tahoe said. We'll be dead if we don't. A crisis meeting was held inside the stabilizer chamber. The emerald light from the fluid conduits danced across grim faces, like the final spotlight before execution. We've tried everything, Una said, but the system only reaches 12% capacity. We lack parts, we lack energy, and we're out of time. Tahoe stood, voice steel hard. Then we'll give you what you need, even if it costs us our ship. But I demand one thing in return, a real chance. If this device can't save the planet, I will order a forced evacuation. Doan nodded. It can work, but there's one problem. We can't control the energy distribution. The system requires 7 energy pylons to be built across the planet, placed precisely on what we call life nodes. If even one is placed wrong, the backfire will incinerate us all. Mi's brow furrowed. How long to install 7 pylons? 2 months, Dawn said, at best. We only have about 60 days left, Sunu reminded. Tahoe placed his hand on the energy blade at his back. Then we do it in 3 weeks. Or we all get buried under this hell rock together. 4 days later, the first engineering crew was deployed to Pylon Site Onea mountainous region near the planet's southern pole. As they arrived, the ground began to tremble. Deploy the pylon, Mi commanded. The moment the device was anchored into bedrock, a 5.3 magnitude quake struck. A boulder broke loose from a cliff rolling fast. Engineer Darren didn't make it. The rock crushed him from the waist down. His scream carved through the air like a hot blade. Dean rushed forward. Blood bubbled from Darren's lips. Help me! Don't let me die here. One long, silent second passed. Then a young woman from the colony, Alan, stepped forward. She placed her hand gently on Darren's forehead. Sleep, she whispered. 1 heartbeat later, Darren was gone. You killed him? Dean roared. No, Alan replied, barely audible. I gave him peace. Dean lunged, but Tahoe held him back. She showed mercy. The blood still soaked the dirt, but the first pylon activated. A column of white-green light surged into the heaven, signaling either salvation or the beginning of planetary death. 7 locations, 3 weeks. Heavy losses. 1 crew buried by a landslide. Another burned by reverse plasma surge. But the colony did not break. The old, the young, the engineers, the warriors, they all pressed forward. It wasn't a rescue mission. It was a war against nature, fought not with weapons, but with blind, burning faith in a future unseen. When the 7th pylon flared to life, the entire planet shuddered. From the heart of the core stabilizer, Mi's voice crackled through. Energy pathways synchronized. Stabilizer is receiving signal. Mantle reconstruction cycle has begun. Sunu closed his eyes. Either we just saved this planet, or we've lit the fuse for Armageddon, Dean finished. Tahoe looked around the chamber. His voice dropped, almost a prayer. This isn't a mission anymore. It's a sacrifice. And if we all turn to ash, at least we chose not to turn away. 3 days after the 7th energy pylon was activated, the Wanderer drifted in a temporary silence. All auxiliary systems had been shut down, their power rerouted to the core stabilizer. The ship now communicated only through Morse code light, pulses beamed in primitive optical signals, like echoes from a Cold War long forgotten. In the command deck, Tahoe hadn't slept in 2 days. His eyes were sunken, ringed with shadows, but his gaze still cut like steel. Everyone waited for a response from the system. But the only answer was a dry, suffocating silence. "Not enough," Doan finally said, voice like stone, grinding against stone. "The core is reacting, but the energy distribution matrix is unstable. Something's off. The structure isn't complete." "What do you mean?" Dean snapped. "The system's acting like a circulatory network, but without a heart." That evening, as the violet sky darkened to inky black, Eutha, three-eyed anthropologist from the Union, sat alone in the central square. Her thoughts spiraled. How could a planet so advanced, so spiritually evolved, be spiraling toward destruction? And then a small voice spoke. "You're thinking about it the wrong way." Ju turned, startled. Before her stood three children between 6 and 10 years old. Each was different: a white-haired girl, a dark-eyed boy, and a shorter child with deep brown skin. In their hands was a semi-transparent tablet covered in symbols, schematics, and mathematical formulas even Wanderer's AI would need hours to decode. "What is this?" Ju asked. "A map," said the girl. "A map of what?" "Of the dream," the smallest boy replied. "You drew this yourselves?" "No," all three said at once. "The planet showed us, in our dreams, all of us, at the same time." You rushed them to the Wanderer's backup engineering bay, where me and 3 remaining engineers were stationed. "I know this sounds insane, but..." Ju laid the map on the table. Me glanced at it, then stood bolt upright. "This is a plasma resonance schematic. It's a layered core frequency matrix." Doan rushed over. "No, it can't be. This is a subphotonic feedback structure. No one's ever even theorized this." Sunu stood frozen. "They've drawn the completed framework. Something we couldn't solve. Not even with all our tech." "With what?" Me asked the oldest child. "With feelings," the child said calmly, "and pictures. The planet speaks in color, sound, and emotion." Dean coughed hard. Wiping a trickle of blood from his nose pressure from the past week had ruptured his sinuses daily. "Do you kids even know what you're doing?" he asked, weary and hollow. The white-haired girl looked straight into Dean's eyes. "We're saving the world, and you are trying not to believe." That night, Me stood at the core stabilizer, gripping the dream map in her hands. Before her, the living conduit system had been rewired according to the children's strange, beautiful design. "System stable," she whispered. "Plasma resonance tuning." From the depths, the machine began to hum, not with mechanical noise, but with something melodic. A deep breath. A long, resonant note. As if the planet itself had a voice and was singing. "It's connected to the core's heart layer," Doan gasped. "We're deeper than any device has ever gone." But then disaster struck. Pylon 3, positioned on the northern plateaus, suddenly went dark. A distant explosion thundered through the earth, sharp as a bullet to the chest. Drone footage confirmed it. The pylon had been obliterated. Scorch marks bled across the red soil. 3 members of the engineering team were thrown from the cliff's bodies, torn and unrecognizable. "Something destroyed it," Sunu whispered. "No," Me checked the data. "This wasn't geological. This was intentional. From within the planet." Dean slammed a paper against the console. "Don't tell me this planet is fighting back against us, trying to save it." "It's not resisting," Ju replied. "It's testing. It wants to know who's worthy to save it." Tahoe stepped forward, his eyes shadowed with grief and fire. "We rebuild Pylon 3, no matter the cost. Who volunteers?" Doan stepped forward. "I do." A lengthy young woman who had once comforted Darren in his last moments joined him. "Me too." Then the smallest child spoke, voice barely a whisper. "Don't go the same way. Something's under the cold rock." "What is it?" Me asked, her heart tightening. "Something that lived here, before us." It woke when it heard the planet sing. At midnight, the new team departed. Acid rain fell light but steady. On the way, a creature like a spine-backed serpent was struck by stray plasma lightning hits. Blood hissed like acid against the ground. They reached the site. 6 hours. That's all they had. If the system fell out of sync, everything would collapse. Alan took a blow to the chest from a root shard. Doan broke his right arm. But they didn't stop. Blood stained the rocks. Hands trembled but held. And when the pylon activated once more, its white-green beam tore through the black sky, slicing the dust clouds. The planet's heart beat again, and this time, no one died. Tahoe stood atop the control tower, looking down at the village, wrapped in silence. In the dark, the 3 children sat together, hand in hand, eyes closed. No orders, no applause, no need to be remembered. They weren't born to be heroes. They simply followed a dream and believed it strong enough to save the world. Tahoe turned away, his chest tight. We, adults, we used to dream like that, and we lost it because of fear. He clenched his fist. This time, we will keep our promise. Day 39 since the core stabilizer was activated. The crust of the planet had begun to split, cracking with veins of fire, releasing smoke from deep beneath the surface. In the sky above, the Wanderer pulsed dimly with its final red emergency lights flashing in rhythm, like the heartbeat of a dying body. Sunu reported, "The magma layer is moving. We've stabilized the core frequency network, but there's no return pulse yet, which means the machine is still waiting for a final signal." "Maybe the transfer force isn't strong enough," Doan muttered, sweat soaking his collar. "We need an impulse, surge, something powerful enough to shock the core awake." "What kind of surge?" Dean asked. Doan turned slowly. The ship's full power. No interruptions. One-time ignition. Tahoe stood motionless at the Wanderer's control panel, his hand resting on the master power switch. If he pressed it, the ship would die. The Union would lose contact forever. They would be stranded here permanently if the plan failed. Mi spoke up. "We can reroute and initiate the transfer sequence, but we'll have less than 20 minutes before the ship permanently shuts down." "Do it," Tahoe ordered coldly. "We won't abandon them, not even if it means dragging the ship into hell." Mi executed the command chain. A low whoomph echoed through the hull. The Wanderer shuddered violently. Lights died. Consoles went dark. One breath later, the core stabilizer lit up like a second sun. The Earth convulsed beneath them. Above, the 7 energy pylons shot beams of radiant light into the sky, weaving together like threads of a massive lotus bloom that enveloped the entire planet. Then, from the deepest parts of the world, came a sound. Not metal, not stone, not machine. A voice, like something awakening after sleeping for thousands of years. Doan lifted his head. "It's responding." "The core is speaking," Alan gasped, blood leaking from her eyes under the spiritual pressure. "It's saying, 'I'm alive, but I'm in pain.'" And at that moment, disaster struck. A deep fissure split the colony in half. Buildings collapsed. Screams echoed. Bodies were swallowed by the cracking earth. Blood sprayed from the breaks in the soil. Children wailed. Adults clawed through rubble to drag out fallen comrades, only to find scorched torsos, bodies burned beyond recognition. A 9.2 magnitude quake obliterated the western plateau. Juno was flung from the observation tower, her arms snapping like dry wood, but she still shouted into the radio. "Maintain the conduit! Don't break the chain!" Tahoe dove into rubble, pulling a child from beneath the crushed body of his dead mother. Blood ran up to his elbows. "Get him to med," he barked at Dean. "We're going to die here, Commander." "Then so be it," Tahoe growled, but not by leaving someone behind. The magma breached the crust, rising like molten blood. But this time, the stabilizer absorbed it. The 7 energy pillars shifted from white to shimmering teal. A central beam of light erupted from the planet's heart, piercing sky and storm, linking with the energy field now wrapped around the globe. The sky changed color, the winds reversed, and the ground stopped shaking. Yuna collapsed, blood seeping from her ears, but a faint smile touched her lips. "It's accepted us. 20 minutes later, silence. No more earthquakes. No more screaming. Just a heartbeat. The planet's first steady heartbeat. One beat, then another. The glow of the core stabilizer dimmed. On the interface, words appeared. Stabilization, successful. Core pressure, stable. Life signs, balanced. In the temporary command station, no one spoke. Then someone wept. And they all follow embracing, sobbing not out of triumph, but out of survival. No medals, no glory. Just life preserved by blood, by broken bones, and by a decision to not turn away. Tahoe stepped outside. For the first time in decades, the sky burned a radiant blue. The child he had pulled from the rubble walked up and took his hand. "You were the last one who didn't run," the child said. Tahoe knelt beside him. "No, it wasn't just me. It was all of us. All who chose not to fear sacrifice." Beneath the roots of the windcaller treeware, the first settlers of this world were buried. A violet blue light rose, pulsing like a soul at peace. The wind stirred softly, as if the very spirit of the planet was whispering thank you. 3 days after the planet was saved, the skies had turned a bright, clean blue. No more ash, no more trembling earth. But no one smiled. No celebration. The wounds were too fresh, and the dead still lay beneath the rubble. The Wanderer remained completely shut down. No communication, no movement, no shields. That was when the Union fleet arrived. From high orbit, 5 capital-class warships appeared by the command vessel Verdict, under the authority of Admiral Kang, Supreme Commander of the Western Sector. The ship's lights glared down like the judging eyes of ancient gods. "We're receiving transmission," Dean reported, voice tight with dread. "Admiral Kang is demanding an immediate hearing aboard his ship." Tahoe nodded. "We'll go." "We're vulnerable," Juno murmured. "The Wanderer has no power. We're more susceptible than ever." "And that," Tahoe said, his eyes like forged steel, "is exactly why we walk in with our heads held high." On the Verdict, the Tribunal Hall felt like a shrine of cold, metallic judgment. 12 floating holographic panels representing a species of the Galactic Union hovered above the chamber, like watching stars. Tahoe stood before them, Yuna, Keen, and me at his side. "We've reviewed the full satellite footage," Admiral Kang began, voice devoid of warmth. "More machine than man. You violated every diplomatic, security, and scientific protocol of the Union. You led your crew into a restricted zone. You depleted strategic resources, and you made contact with an unrecognized species." Tahoe did not defend. He asked one question. "And if I hadn't?" A beat of silence. "They'd all be dead," Kang admitted through gritted teeth. Yuna stepped forward. "Not a new species. We are human just like you. But we were chosen to evolve in the dark." One council member, a silver-scaled being from the Yuk's system, spoke. "You possess telekinetic abilities, empathic resonance. You speak with the planet. That is no longer human." Me stepped forward. "And if that's humanity's next step, what's wrong with not fearing what makes us different?" Silence. Overhead lights flickered, signs of tension in the ship's neural systems. Kang changed tone. "I do not deny your courage, but the consequences are severe. You've proven humanity can evolve beyond control." "No," Keen said firmly. "We've proven that even after evolving, we still choose compassion." At the end of the tribunal, Admiral Kang issued 2 options. The colony would be placed under Union supervision. All technology would be copied. Children with extraordinary abilities would be isolated for research. Or the colony would be abandoned. No support, no protection, a full blockade. Yuna didn't respond immediately. She turned to Tahoe. "You sacrificed your ship, your time, your blood. Now it's our turn." She stepped forward. "We choose a third path." The chamber fell into stunned silence. we declare independence. As a new people post-humanity, we are willing to share our knowledge, but not our souls. A wave of backlash erupted across the displays. Some species nodded in agreement. Others threatened retaliation. Kang sighed. Then the Union will convene to decide. Until then, no one is to touch them. As they exited the verdict, Tahoe looked back toward the planet. In the glowing sky, the network of energy pylons still shimmered, forming a living shield, pulsing in time with the heartbeat of millions who had chosen a path no map had drawn. Back on the ground, the children were playing again. Ju scribbled furiously in her journal, tears in her eyes as one little girl whispered, "When I close my eyes, I see light under the ground. It's not scary. It's smiling." Me stood frozen. Maybe this is what evolution truly means. Not power, not tech, but connection. Tahoe recorded his final log. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring. The Union may accept or destroy us. But I do know this. We faced the abyss, and we did not let the darkness take us. We did not become strong through control, but by choosing to sacrifice for what is right." 3 weeks after the tribunal, the Galactic Union had yet to reach a verdict. Surveillance ships still circled the skies like vultures, watching a land they couldn't decide was treasure or threat. The Council was divided. Half wanted to integrate Verland's technology into planetary restoration programs. The other half pushed to neutralize it before it was too late. Below, the colony endured. No one left. No one backed down. And though it was never said aloud, everyone knew a war might be coming. Tahoe stood in the town square, once a sinkhole of chaos, now sealed with glowing energy crystals. He watched the children, now symbols of an emerging species, laugh and play beneath the violet shimmer of the twin moons. "They still don't understand what might happen," Me said beside him. "And I hope they never have to," Tahoe replied. "If anyone deserves to live without being labeled a weapon, it's them." Day 57. A signal arrived. But not from the Union. Not from Earth. From outside the known stars, the ion beings of living light from the galaxy's edge had seen the planetary energy lattice radiating into space. "We do not come to claim. We come to learn." Then came more signals. From dying planets, from colonies collapsing in silence. They had seen what Verland had done. They wanted to understand the technology of resurrection. For the first time in Galactic Union history, a non-recognized colony had become the center of galactic attention. At an informal gathering among neutral species, a phrase emerged, whispered like prophecy. "Maybe light doesn't rise from the center of power, but from the ashes it once buried." Ju, the anthropologist, was tasked with documenting the entire incident. In her final report, she wrote, "Not all evolution is to be feared. Not all power is meant to destroy. Some beings were born to break limits, not to conquer, but to heal. We call them post-humans. But maybe they're simply the better version of what we were meant to be." Tahoe recorded his final log. "We came here chasing a strange signal. But what we found was the future. Not a future of warships, treaties, or governments, but one where heart and mind move together. If this is the beginning of a new species, then I pray they won't repeat our oldest mistake, choosing fear over love. We weren't heroes. We were just the last ones who stayed, when everyone else turned away." That night, the energy lattice across the sky pulsed like a living aurora. Hundreds of streams of white and turquoise light spiraled upward, signaling the planet's soul had awakened. From thousands of light years away, it could be seen. And a message was sent, not in words, but in feeling: we are alive, and we will never return to the dark. If you still believe some stories deserve to be told not with noise, but with truth that echoes from the soul, if you can feel the voices of those whose names history forgot, And if you know somewhere out there in this wide universe, there are still those who stood their ground just to keep one final light burning, hit subscribe. Because the light of a new world begins with one small touch from you. And welcome to the journey of those who never turn back.